From King's Landing, a decoration from the Queens of Westeros. This is a House of the Dragon podcast rooted in supporting all actors, writers, and artists on strike. House of the Dragon actors are members of the British Union, and all scripts were completed several months prior of the Writers Guild Association strike. We at House of Targaryen Realness are dedicated to promoting media that does not interfere with the strikes, an event known as scabbing, or support companies and individuals who do not pay their artists properly. For more information to where you can find and give support, visit sagafra.org or wga.org. And to everyone on strike, our dragons are at your disposal. And as always, Akaras. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Game of Thrones House of Dragon podcast, otherwise known as
the House of Targaryen Realness.
The realest podcast you'll ever listen to. So we're here today with House of the Dragon episode 2, and to start us off, Reagan is going to give the summary this week.
Woo, and what an episode. So this one is titled The Rouge Prince, and all this occurs 6 months after the last episode. We open with a crab buffet of soldiers on the beach. It's quite a dark scene. And then this is immediately juxtaposed with Viserys talking with his court in King's Landing. Like that, everything's fine. They're totally fine, but people are getting picked apart by crabs somewhere else. It's fun. Lord Corlys is pissed with the lack of support against the leader. And Rhaenyra, despite her recent title of heir to the throne, is still only acting as cupbearer in her father's court because men. But that doesn't stop her from being the ITGIRL.
She is that girl.
She is that girl. And she actually gives good advice in terms of how they can stop the crab feeder. Absolutely irritated at her presence, Otto dismisses Rhaenyra, and they send her away to go swipe through night. And there she swipes right on Kristen Cole. She says, I like him because he actually has real experience in combat. Despite the urging of Otto, she does not reconsider. Viserys shows off his model train set of King's Landing to Alicent, and she's like, ooh, nice. Good for you, buddy. Despite being pimped out by her father, Alicent makes the most of the situation to try and heal the relationship between Rhaenyra and her father. During a bestie prayer session in the Sept, Alicent starts to plant the seed in Rhaenyra's mind that Viserys might remarry, sort of as a way to warn Rhaenyra of what Otto is planning. Also aware of the king's single status, Corlys and Rhaenys offer the hand of their daughter, Laena, a child. Anyways.
Boo.
On a bitch session about the proposal, while Viserys's decaying fingers are eaten by maggots, which is the best beauty treatment in all of King's Landing. As Viserys takes the most awkward stroll through the garden with Laena, Rhaenys and Rhaenyra have an epic heart-to-heart about what it means to be up for the Iron Throne as a woman. Since he hasn't had any attention in 6 months, Daemon sends out an evite for his wedding that also announces he stole the dragon egg that was assigned to Prince Balon, essentially giving everyone the middle finger and then some. Over his dramatics, Otto plans on seizing the egg in a bloody battle against Daemon at Dragonstone. But before the men can give in to their stupid, petty comebacks, which are actually really funny. I could not get over Kristen Cole's like, oh, maybe you remembered me when I pushed you off your horse.
Mr. Crisp.
Rhaenyra flies in and verbally slaps Daemon across the face. Daemon gives back the egg and retreats into the shadows, where he is also verbally slapped across the face by his girlfriend. Though the victory at Dragonstone gives Rhaenyra an edge, Viserys voices for the first time since announcing her title as heir that he does not plan on changing his decision, but it comes with a price from Rhaenyra. as she has to be more careful, and not do crazy things like go try to stop your uncle from doing something incredibly stupid. Anyways,
Yeah, she needs to keep breathing.
yeah, she needs to still be alive. The next morning, Viserys makes the very bold decision to marry Alicent, which in then pisses off everyone in court except for the very smug Otto Hightower. We end with Lord Corlys collaborating with Daemon over the war with the crab feeder. We finally see the man, the legend himself, the crab feeder, as he does what he does best and nails some dying soldiers into some wood so his crabs can feed. And that is episode 2. So
So,
let's hear your fire takes. What you
oh,
got?
okay. So for my fire takes, my first one is Sir Kristen Cole. Like,
I know. I don't set up to be so perfect, and it makes me mad. I couldn't. And he looks so good when he steps into the light in the little
mm-hmm,
courtyard they're in. Whenever she steps up on her
mm-hmm.
little step stool, which that reminds me of like when you're a kid and you can't reach the sink yet, and you have to like get like a step stool.
He's
He
he's
looks
very
so good.
like I know everyone hates him, but me
Yeah.
on the other hand, if sometimes I love the color red. You know what I mean? If the red flags are there, I'm into it. I also love that he was chosen for the King's Guard, other than the fact he was hot.
Yeah.
He actually knows like what he's doing. Um, and I don't know, I really enjoy him as a character outside of that, he's hot. I just think I think we're meant to see him as such like a Prince Charming type
Yes.
character. I
Yes.
think we're set up to make it like that. And I never noticed that before the first time watching it, but this time going back, he kind of makes me think of like a Flynn Rider comparison that
100%.
we
And I think that also had to do with like the camera angles because like the way
mhm,
that it like cut to him and everything, it looks like art. It looks like a
mhm,
portrait of someone from the medieval era,
mhm.
the shining knight in armor. And I so think that they did that to show us Rhaenyra's perspective and that like this man is everything. He's a cutie patootie. So
And also,
she's
it was very much like it made me think of like with Tangled and Flynn Rider and Rapunzel, like the classic Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, the whole
yes,
the way she's standing up and he's coming up to the tower to save her. And I don't know, I just really appreciated that shot watching it the second time around. It was very
100%.
gives you a little butterflies if you don't think about what happens ahead.
Oh, yeah. If you think of it outside as an independent event, it's very cute.
Mhm,
And I love how sassy she is. Like, I love that Rhaenyra, even though people are like advise her to not say things and to speak up, during court, and you're just a cupbearer, you're not supposed to give any advice. And whenever we're swiping through Night Tinder, you can't swipe left on a guy just because you don't like him. He
mhm.
has like family values. Like he could do something. He would be a very good pairing or whatever. And she's like, I don't care. I'm gonna choose this for me.
Yeah. Do you have a take that you would like to share?
My fire take for this episode is the drama, but also the women. I thought so. This episode, it's before we get into the whole battle with Damon and the crab feeder. So this one is just a lot of verbal fighting and very crafty, like lots of craftiness happening, and also very stupid stuff. uh for the drama, I said Damon setting up the whole battle at Dragonstone just so he can see Viserys again is the most like younger child syndrome thing I've ever heard, where it's just like, I'm just gonna cause a mess and then you're gonna have to pay attention to me. Like, I'm just gonna start throwing blocks. I'm gonna start throwing my toys. I'm gonna start knocking down walls until you pay attention to me. I thought that was hilarious. I also thought it was interesting that Lord Corlys thinks that partnering with Damon is gonna be a way of
Mhm.
like easing his way into the throne since it didn't work with Viserys. But Damon's literally like, you will not speak for my brother. And I'm actually Team Viserys, but I'm mad at him for kicking me off to the side. What else did I have? I think my last point is that like with Allison, I just she's so clever and at least at this moment very honest and true to who she is. And I think that came off when in her one-on-ones with Viserys. She's just like being herself and she's giving him honest advice. She's, she pays attention to the little things and it's like it's honest friendship almost, for a moment. It's not romantic. She like fixes his dragon and he's like, that was a genuine, like, thank you. I appreciate that, that kind of thing. But I it's just it's such a sad position that she's in, but I really do think that she tries to stay as true to herself as possible, and I, have a lot of respect for that. And I could not get over the look that she gave Otto whenever he's like, you look the disgrace of the court, I think he said, or like you're like the worst lady in
Oh,
court because of her
yeah.
nails. He's like, you look awful. And the look that she gives him, she is such a phenomenal actress because it said so much in just one glance where she's just like, I am like this because of you. Like
Hmm.
I have to physically pick away at myself as a way to cope with all the mental stress that you're putting me under. And I that was just such a, I love that look that she gave him. Um, it's like one of the few moments that I see her retaliate before she becomes queen. And I love that for her. But yeah, so those are my fires for the week. So what's your ice?
Well, I actually have another fire that I was
Oh
gonna put
my gosh,
down.
okay, I'm sorry, keep
Um,
going.
yeah, I was gonna keep going on that. I actually did put down Allison,
Yes.
and it was Allison and the Rhaenyra scene where her and Rhaenyra pray. I feel like that's one of the last few moments they have together as such a genuine friendship, and
Yes.
that to where Allison can truly be herself without her father pushing her or without having to just be this caretaker of a person. I feel like when it comes to her and Rhaenyra, and if when she's there for Rhaenyra, it's actually genuine. It's not like that stereotype that women have of just being the caretaker in every
Right.
relationship.
Right.
And I know Rhaenyra doesn't believe in any type of religion just because of her Targaryen background, but I do think it was a really little sweet moment between the both of them, comparing off later in the episode when Rhaenyra just feels so betrayed that Alicent never told her what happened. And I truly did think that I think she knew the marriage was coming, but I feel like she had a feeling that it would happen later down the line, not
Right.
so
Right.
quickly.
They pushed it so fast.
Mhm.
Everyone in court, everyone around Viserys, everyone pushed it fast except for Rhaenyra and Allison. I think even Allison's like, you don't have to, like, she doesn't want that for him. No one wants to move on from that so quickly. And Otto's such a big talker, like, oh, big in his britches, saying, yeah, my wife's death still affects me to this day.
Mhm.
I don't believe he has emotions for anyone. And I just, that when he said that to him, anyways, pissed me off. Um, but yeah, I really liked that moment between Rhaenyra and Allison and the keep, or was it the sept? It was the
It was
sept.
a sept.
Yeah, and the one in the sept. With the candles and everything, it was just, and it's probably one of the last few peaceful moments in the whole series too,
Mhm. Mhm.
of just people trying to figure things out, before everything gets violent.
So now to move on to ice takes. I do have one. I feel like you might agree with me on this. Rhaenyra being sent away when she's the heir to the Iron Throne
It's
and being treated as a waitress instead of the heir.
it's embarrassing for I honestly I think like I cannot believe and it, like whenever she has that dinner with Viserys and it's like incredibly charged moment between the two of them and he's like you can speak your mind freely around me and when they're one on one at least for now he's so big about her and he's so like yeah I'll defend you and you can speak your mind and blah 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 But like whenever they're in front of other people, he's suddenly so submissive to their ideology or their way that they see things, and he's like, oh no, you can't talk in court, you can't,
Mm-hmm.
stand up. And it's just like, it's so frustrating to me, because it's like you talk a big talk whenever it's just the two of you, but then when you get in front of all your little dude bros that you hired to hang around you, you instantly go their direction. It's just irritating.
I truly do think he loves Rhaenyra, but I think in this setting, even from the beginning, he set her up for failure with not even let her
Yes.
being a part of meetings, not letting her be a part of any type of thing to help her with the throne. And
Yes.
I just is it's just again just really tragic. And I I have a love-hate relationship with Viserys because I truly think he does love Rhaenyra. I truly think he loves her,
Oh,
but
yes.
he's just caught up in the misogyny of my blood needs to be on the throne. Like,
Hmm.
okay, you're putting your daughter on that, but at the same time, how could you still treat her like that when she's the heir to the throne? Because if Rhaenyra was a
And
man and they did that, the whole court would be like, "Oh no, no,
no
no, no,
problem.
let's let her
Or
stay," you
right.
know? So, yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you brought up blood, that he needs his blood to be,
Mhm,
oh, hey, careful there, buddy. Um, the whole thing behind the blood being on the throne and everything kind of reminds me of how we were talking about in last episode about dreams, and his dream about seeing his son on the throne, and how he pushed for that so hard that it killed his wife
mhm,
and his firstborn son. And I think that it just led to such a tragic story, because he pushed that so hard that he did set up Rhaenyra for failure. You're absolutely correct. And he is so infatuated with this dream that he can't get over what's right in front of him, what he can actually
mhm.
do right in front of him, what's not theoretical and what's actually real. Um, yeah, that was so irritating. It
And
was
then
so irritating.
do you have an ice take that you can give?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I do love the drama. I always love the drama. We
Of
love the
course.
drama, of course, because that's what moves the plot forward. Absolutely. I will say the men in this episode, I mean, in most episodes, piss me off, because I'm like, I'm sorry, but most of your resources, and they constantly talk from the start of the episode to the end of the episode about how resources to destroy the crab feeder are very sparse. We don't have a lot of men. We don't got a lot. And then they decide to take a whole chunk of knights and defenders and fighters and resources to go put Damien in a tantrum. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm sorry. So you're complaining about not having resources, but you're gonna like
Yeah.
take a whole fleet of men to destroy this very petty nonsense that, like, even when they were in court and they were talking about what he stole and what he did, they were like, he's just doing this for attention. And then they're like, let's respond with an army. And you know what? If everyone dies and suddenly we have fewer dragons and fewer men, and now we don't have, and now we're really screwed against the
Mhm.
crowd. And you know what? I'm just like, okay, y'all, let's be BFFR. And that's when Rhaenyra came in, and all she had to do was tell Daemon, like, I'm sorry, is this really what you want? And are you really okay? And he was like, I'm not okay. And then threw her the egg. Like,
Yeah,
that was
because
such an easy diffusing of the situation.
because even with that, because I even wrote down dumbass men at some point with talking about the
I
whole thing between Otto and Damon, but
Yes.
I wrote that down because honestly, if you look at the Game of Thrones map, King's Landing and Dragonstone, they're like this close together. They're really close together. So that's probably like a 30-minute dragon ride. So he could have just sent Rhaenyra to be like, really?
Hey, really?
Hey, really? Um, but I know Viserys doesn't have a dragon, but I think you could easily defeat that crab guy if you just let Rhaenyra get on her dragon,
I
a little a little Jacaerys, and they're gone,
And it's done. And that's
and
like
it's done.
and I know that they try to utilize dragons, I know, in the fight against the crab beater, but like it ends up being a whole strategic thing in terms of how they use the dragon against the crab beater, because like
Mhm.
apparently his I don't remember what it is. We'll find out in the next episode. But like, I think his men only come out at night, so it's harder to fight them. I can't remember. Anyways, irregardless, when there is a creepy ass zombie like dude that is destroying your fleet one by one by feeding everyone to crabs, I really think he's top priority. I
And
really think
and
you
you have
should
a
destroy him.
magical beast that can just
Literally.
put out fire. Yeah,
I that's
do
like
a
when
little,
people
send them out and do a little spring cleaning, and then take out and bring the rest of the fleet in and kill.
boom done. And that's when like people say like, oh, I saved the best plan for last. And it was like,
Mhm.
why didn't you start with the best plan? You're just
Yeah.
expecting failure. You're just like, okay, let's go through plans A through Z until we get to the right. Like, oh my god, I cannot, because this crab feeder war goes on for years.
Mhm.
Oh my god. Anyways, they crack me up.
Viserys is
Um,
delusional as always.
he's so yes.
Do you have ice as the underage marriage? I'm assuming, is that like another?
Oh, yeah, that too. I said,
Yeah, I'm just
Lord,
sure you put that
here's,
on there.
I said, Lord Corlys trying to go behind the king's back after he wouldn't marry his 12-year-old daughter. He threw a
I
hissy fit.
I said underage exclamation point.
12 years old! Good God! I'm sorry, but are y'all crazy or am I crazy? I
Oh
could not,
God.
when he was like, when he's having the walk and talk with her in the garden. And she was like, I'll bear you great children. And he was like, yeah, I bet that's what your mom told me to, or no, what your dad told you to say. He's like, what's
Hmm.
your mom tell you to say? Or like, what did your mom tell you? And she was like, oh, that I wouldn't have to sleep with you until I was 14. And he was like, yeah. And then he just like walks off. I was like, that is the most, what the fuck?
I mean, Viserys has his moments, his little wishy-washy moments, and that was one of them to where I was like, okay, thank God.
Thank God.
But still, Allison is 14, so
Yeah,
doesn't help.
doesn't help, but also it's Game of Thrones.
Also, to bring up Viserys, this is just tuning into my last ice take.
Mm,
There's a scene where we talked about his finger rotting, and that can bringing up that his power is literally killing him.
yep.
This he can't, what we were saying about how he can't do anything, he can't
Hmm.
make a decision, he what you were saying, use the best plan. It just yeah, he's just a little thorn in my ass that just won't
He really,
do anything.
and it's so funny because right now I am like, I'm shitting all over him right now, but like, I know in a couple of episodes, I'm gonna be like, I love him.
I know, and I'm really trying hard to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's such a he's a love to hate character for
He
me.
is a love to hate.
It's
Yeah,
it's not like a Cersei Lannister situation to where it's like, oh, okay, she's a bad guy, she loves her kids. It's like, no, he's just genuinely dumb and he
yeah.
loves his kids and just doesn't know what to do.
He just, I really do think Emma was like I don't know if she like had a whole jar of his brain cells or something like that with her
Mhm.
when she died. But when she died, I think he just like lost half his brain. Honestly,
Yeah, I guess Emma was the one making the decisions behind the
I really
throne.
do. I really do think she was because he's like completely helpless without her.
Hmm.
He that he was 100% dependent on her, and when she went, so did everything else about him. I mean, even his, and you can, and Patty, I think it's Patty Constantine, that plays him. He does such a good job of, in the first episode you see him, whenever it's like the tourney and they're celebrating, he's so full of life and so happy. And then after Emma dies, even in this episode, it's been 6 months, and you can just tell, and even in moments where he is happy, he's still so like there's no life, in him anymore. He's like he did such a good job of conveying that throughout this entire. from the moment that Emma passes on, and you can
Mhm.
just tell that the light in him died, and Patty really brought that to screen, and I thought that was commemorable. And that's one of, I think, his redeeming qualities, is that he loved his wife so much.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think he was also blocking off those emotions because even what he said to Rhaenyra, that I didn't realize my daughter had become a woman, you know. So
Yes.
I think Rhaenyra also looking like a spitting image of her also
Oh, I'm
didn't help him
sure.
either, you know.
I that also reminds me, I forgot the quote that Allison told Rhaenyra whenever they're in the sept. And, she's like, "How are things between you and your father?" And Rhaenyra's talking about how they haven't really spoken since the funeral, and like things have
Hmm.
been really hard. And she was like, "How are things with your dad?" And then she said, "My father, I struggle with him. He does not speak the language of girls."
Of course,
And
yeah.
I was like, that's so meaningful on many different levels. I just really love that quote. And it puts everything so well. I think not only for what they're feeling and what they're experiencing in the moment, but literally what every woman character in Game of Thrones goes through, is that all the women have a language that they understand that men simply either A, refuse to learn, or B, completely don't understand. And
Hmm.
so, and that's where a lot of conflict comes from. And anyways, I just thought that was a really lovely quote, and it's true. I don't think Otto also speaks the language of human beings, but
Oh no, of course not. He speaks the language of lizard people, I think
loser.
personally. Do you have any other ice takes?
Um, nope. I think I said the men, and then right underneath that it says Otto Hightower. So
Mm, seems
you get
fair.
the gist. You
So
get the
next,
gist.
I'm going to consult the text
Let's consult
and
the
bring
text.
up anything that has been seen in the Game of Thrones show or books. And I think the first one, the obvious one, is that the Crabman has grayscale. I don't know if you caught that or not, but
I did not.
it's when they turn the body to stone and it causes madness. That's what he has.
How did I not realize that?
I was
I
waiting to
feel
see if
like,
you would bring that up.
no, that is blatantly obvious, and that went right over my head. That's embarrassing. Okay, anyways, that is so cool.
And then another thing I noticed about him is that they said he was wearing the Sons of Harpy mask, and he makes his outfit out of different off of other people's outfits from the shipwrecks, which I just thought was like a little interesting. You can definitely tell that about his character, I think.
It's very Frankenstein,
Uh-huh.
kind of stitched together. That's a very interesting detail.
Hmm.
And I
And then
hate the way his body is all like hunched over and stuff. It reminds me of Schmeagol from Lord of the Rings, very Gollum like, where his
I
back is
haven't seen
all
Lord of the Rings, but I believe you.
oh yeah. Anyways, yeah, he
New
kind of looks like
podcast is
that.
dropping, Lord of the Rings.
Yep, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's go.
And then another one I had was when Viserys was telling Alicent about the Valyrian magic. There's a quote in the book. I couldn't. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find it, but it basically says all the Valyrians when he was saying all the Valyrians' magic is of fire and blood. And there's a quote in the book to where it says Valyrian magic is of source of magic of fire of blood, and it goes into the fact that some people think this isn't canon. I think it's just like one of those like theories, you know. But
Hmm.
it's that the Targaryens use the Bal- Valyrian magic to create dragons, or in a sense, they used it to be able to. This is kind of a stretch, but in one of the scenes when Viserys is talking to Alicent about this, in the background, there's a dragon having sex with a human while he's talking about this. So
Interesting. Okay, I
it
have a
also
question
goes
for
into the
you.
theory of Targaryens mating with dragons, and that's why they have that connection such a long time ago. But that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay, I have a question, and it might be like a really stupid question, but has
Mhm.
any other bloodline been able to ride dragons other than Targaryens?
The Valerian Targaryen.
Valerian Targaryen. I mean, like, if
Yeah.
just for example, if a Stark or a Balon or a Tyrell were to hop up on a dragon, what would happen?
I think you have to bond with the dragon. I think it's different for everyone, but I think you have to have some type of Targaryen blood in you, rather if it's like half Targaryen, all Targaryen or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's say it's Daenerys and we're gonna pretend Jon Snow isn't her nephew.
Nope.
Let's say he's like okay, let's say Daenerys and like Robb Stark, okay?
Okay.
Daenerys and
Okay.
Robb Stark had a baby and it would be half Stark, half Targaryen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be a good example of something.
Okay.
Does that make sense? You know,
Yeah, that does make sense.
even the bastards in coming up in the next few episodes
Oh.
are definitely a pretty good example of believing on what you believe. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have to have that connection somewhere in there.
Interesting. I also so one thing I meant to ask earlier, but since we're talking about connections to Game of Thrones itself, let's
Hmm.
talk about the title, the opening title screens, the opener with the
I actually did write down like a
yeah.
whole page of like notes of what I think that's about.
Oh, okay. Well, let's hear it.
Okay, so the new opening starts off with blood running down. Like I think it started off with like old Valyria,
Okay.
and then it showed the ending of it, and then it started off with Aegon, and just showing the whole Targaryen dynasty. Because if we look, it has his two. Aegon had two sons with his two sister wives, and one of his wives named Rhaenys, she died on her dragon, and a spear went through the dragon's head, and that's how she died. And when we see the bloodline split up, one of the symbols is a dragon with a spear through it.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay.
And then it moves on to like kind of the rest of the bloodlines. It kind of shows the blood scattering, you know, the Targaryen dynasty moving on, and then it went through his son, and then it went to, you know, uh, all the nine kids, and then it came to Viserys, and then it's we see Emma's house,
Hmm.
and then they come together, and then it just goes into a trail of blood. We don't see Rhaenyra yet, and I think that brings up all of the stillbirths that Emma had.
Oh.
Because also when we go back to it, it just with all the nine kids before it just all of it just splits up into different like bloodlines and stuff. And then it cuts down to the only kids who grew up to the adulthood, and then it focused on Viserys.
Interesting.
And then it showed Rhaenyra's necklace that Daemon gave to her. And then if we look on the side of Rhaenyra, it has the Otto Hightowers, the Hightowers symbol, and it starts. And then we have Otto Hightower, and then we have Alicent. It doesn't show the bloodlines connecting yet, but we
Hmm.
see Otto Hightower's house on the side right there, and then it shows all of the blood going downhill, which I think is a good um, foreshadowing of what's happening to the Targaryen dynasty.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we know that in Game of Thrones, every season and even halfway through the season or multiple times a season, they change the opener to show whatever houses are involved in the episodes, right? Do you think that the opener will change or will show more as we get more characters and get more um
I think it will show more because I never noticed it the first time, to be honest with you. I didn't really pay attention to it.
uh-huh.
I would just hit fast forward. No one judge me on that.
uh
Um it would say skip intro and I'd be like, "Yep."
yeah, sure.
But this time I actually sat down and watched it, and I think that it maybe once, you know, Allison and Viserys get married, it'll show them intertwined. And then when it shows when Rhaenyra gets married with her kids, I think it will show more with the bloodline with that in the opening, if that makes
Well,
sense.
yes, and also the true lineage of her
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't. Yeah, I didn't really pay it. I always watched, like, I like watching the title credits. I like watching the openers because I think it really helps like set the mood of like what I'm about to watch. I'm all about it. I love ambiance, and but I don't think I ever like paid attention to like the symbols and everything. I just thought it was like a cool opener. I just didn't really like pay attention. But now I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna look for the
Yeah, no,
details.
I never paid attention to the symbols because I was watching it and then I saw Rhaenyra's necklace pop up and I was like,
Hello.
this must be symbolizing something that I've never seen before. So I went back and I rewatched it and paused it and went through some of the houses that like I recognized, and then it looked like it started off with Aegon's conquest and then so on and
Mm-hmm.
so forth.
Interesting. Yeah. So that was my question, and I also wanted to ask, which do you like better? Do you like Game of Thrones' opener better, or do you like this opener better?
I really don't remember Game of Thrones opening. Like comparing the two, I always, because it's been a year since I've watched House of the Dragon,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. So I've always remembered House of the Dragon more with the
Right.
opening. I really didn't think Game of Thrones opening was very impactful to me. I don't think because I would watch. I mean, I've seen it every season. Just I know every season it would change, and I would sit and watch it. It wouldn't leave me going, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? It never really it did anything for me. What about you?
I so I did appreciate in Game of Thrones whenever
Hmm.
they showed what houses were involved because it helped me keep track of things better because,
Hmm.
there's so many characters, it's hard to keep it all straight. I
Hmm.
appreciated that. I like the look of this one better. And I don't know if it's just because it's so dark and sets the tone really well. I don't really know what it is because when you're watching the Game of Thrones title card opening, I think it's a little bit brighter, at least the colors are, and the, whatever um, lighting they're using or whatever they're deciding in that moment is a little bit brighter. But this one is dark. It's, that dark stone and his blood and, all those elements. And I think I don't know, I think it does a better job. But I did like that they kept the same theme
Hmm.
musically. Um, I don't know because they've been using the same music throughout the show, and I've like we talked about in the episode before about how it had the theme that we associate with Danny, and they're keeping a lot of the music, and I just can't imagine if everything was set with a different score. I feel like that would maybe be too alienating of the world and the universe that has already been created. I don't know. Would you have liked a different score, some different music?
I I think they did a good choice keeping the same theme song to it because I think it hints that nostalgia for people who have seen Game of Thrones. And I
Yeah,
think if
that
people
too.
who go to watch, if people watch House of the Dragon first, then Game of Thrones, I think it keeps that connection to
Hmm.
it and that same like feel. Because, like when it was first coming out, it's like, oh, okay, it's Game of Thrones prequel. Like, are we really sure about this?
Right.
So it's kind of like comparing it to like Star Wars. Before every movie, it plays like the Star Wars theme. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
I
that's
think it
true.
I think it sets the mood of like what you're about to watch and like what you're about to do.
So, question then,
Mm.
we're gonna get some more Game of Thrones TV shows like
Hmm.
Jon Snow's show. Do you
Yeah.
do you think anywho, do you think that they'll keep that theme for his show as well?
I think they should if they plan to bring back other Game of Thrones characters.
Yeah.
Not just even me and being Delulu and that Daenerys could come back. I think if they're gonna bring back other characters,
Delulu.
because I don't think Jon Snow can carry a show by himself. I think they need to bring back other characters. Because if they don't, I think it's gonna flop. Because Jon Snow barely says 3 words
True.
anyway. You know what I mean?
It's
So,
true.
and that's another conversation for another time about how show Jon Snow is awful. But I
Hot takes.
hot takes a drop in. But would you be interested in a Game of Thrones show of like Aegon's Conquest, or even
Yes.
you like Old Valyria, or
Yes.
something that just goes into all that?
Absolutely. I think it's like when you related it to Star Wars, I completely
Hmm.
agree. I think there is so much that we can explore. And I love that. I love it when the lore is deep, thorough. George R. R. Martin is a very good world builder in my mind, at least historically.
Hmm.
At least historically, he has history down to a science for sure. But do we have any other consult the text moments?
Yeah, this one's a little depressing.
Oh,
When that scene when Viserys was talking with his soon 12-year-old bride, um, it made me think of in the books when Daenerys is 13 when she marries Khal Drogo. And I think in the
That's
show
right.
they tried to make her like 18 or 20. I just pretend she's like 21 because Emilia Clarke was 21 when she played uh Daenerys in that season, and she
Okay.
doesn't look like an 18-year-old to me. So,
No, she
um,
doesn't. Which
but
kudos to it's better that way.
yeah. But there's a scene in the Game of Thrones books to where, Daenerys says she would rather kill herself than go on than be bedded by men like that.
Yep.
So, that's one of the last things that I related that to. I know there's one about Sansa, but I don't remember that. It was something like
Oh, I'm
Sansa's
sure.
body was still or something. It was something along those lines like that.
Oh
Um,
God.
but
Trauma.
but in the but shows Randy doesn't touch Sansa in the books so far yet. So
Oh, really? So that was something that the show developed?
yeah, the show gave Sansa like a different storyline because they ran out of storyline in the book, so they gave it to someone. They gave it to her.
OMG. Okay. Anyways, okay, so I have listened. I read the first book. I read the
Mhm,
first book. I have the second book. I have not
mhm,
read it yet. I also have the book that this entire series is based on. Have not read it
mhm.
yet. I will get there, and one day I will be as knowledgeable as you. I know one day I can achieve it. I don't think I'll be able to speak in High Valyrian though. I will. That is your special talent.
Jacques Abercis unarmed. That's all I
Yeah.
remember right now. Anyway,
Sure.
period.
Absolutely. Period. Slay. Find out what slay is in High
I feel like I
Valyrian,
had
and
to,
I'll
I
say
had to,
that.
th- I had to, I had to throw it in there because you were like, "That's your thing," and I'm like,
Now you have to think of something.
"I have to be Daenerys Targaryen."
Oh, darn. No, yeah, find out what slay is in High Valyrian, and then let me know. I'll just say that all
Okay.
the time. That
Well,
won't
we
confuse
both
people.
know what fire is, Jakara's.
Yeah, at least I know that. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for coming down and sitting down with us and talking about season 1, episode 2. Please make sure to join us next week and every Monday for the realest podcast you'll ever
Every
listen
Monday.
to
Monday.
of House of Targaryen Realness.
The realest podcast around. The storm broke,
The dragons danced and
and we
we
watched.
watched.